The empty stage. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's all give a rousing Grand Ole Opry welcome to the one and only Johnny Cash. The announcer's resonant voice reverberated, echoing off the storied walls. A seismic wave of applause followed, a joyous eruption threatening to lift the Ryman's roof. Beams of light pirouette, dancing like wayward sprites before converging on center stage. But there was no man in black. Only empty space. The applause faltered, then subsided, replaced by a confused murmur. Where was he? Lateness wasn't in Cash's repertoire. He held his audience, the stage, the very music itself, in too high esteem. Earl, the perpetually disheveled stage manager, bit down on his lip, his gaze flitting anxiously between the vacant spotlight and the stage's edge. He shot a tight nod to the band, an unspoken command to buy time. The Tennessee Three struck up a lively instrumental, but the crowd's discomfort was almost tangible. The notes rang hollow, a paper-thin facade struggling to mask an inexplicable absence. Backstage, the air hung thick with apprehension. Panic lurked just below the surface, poised to erupt. Assistants murmured urgently into phones, their faces etched with concern. Stagehands traded wary glances, their usual joviality quelled by the mounting tension. "Where the devil is he?" Earl demanded, his voice constricted. "Has anyone laid eyes on him?" A young woman, headset askew and face strained of color, shook her head. "No, sir. He was in his dressing room moments ago. Said he needed a moment to collect himself." Collect himself? The idea seemed preposterous. This was Johnny Cash. He simply walked on, offered a glance, and the music flowed. Earl shouldered his way through a huddle of fretful musicians, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm. He reached Cash's dressing room and rapped sharply. "Johnny? You all right in there?" "They're waiting." Silence answered him. A spike of anxiety shot through Earl. He grasped the handle. Locked. "Johnny, it's Earl. Open up." He knocked again, harder this time. "Johnny, this isn't a joke." Still nothing. Only the faint, muffled sound of, what could that be? He strained his ear against the door. It resembled an argument? "Johnny, I swear, if you don't unlock this door right now." Earl's voice trailed off, tinged with growing dread. He understood Cash. He recognized that unwavering resolve, that steely devotion to his principles. And suddenly, a bone-chilling presentiment gripped him. This wasn't merely stage fright. This was something more profound. Something weightier. He knew the legend rarely active without a cause. And at this moment, that cause was barricaded behind a bolted door. He slammed his heel against the lock. The cheap mechanism gave way, and the door creaked inward. A boy's dream. Johnny felt the sticky humidity clinging to his skin, a stark contrast to the air-conditioned chill of his dressing room. He'd walked out, needing a breath, a distraction from the turmoil brewing inside him. The backstage area throbbed with a nervous energy, roadies adjusting cables, stagehands whispering instructions, the low hum of amplifiers waiting to roar. He wandered past stacks of equipment cases, the scent of sawdust and stale beer thick in the air. Then he saw him. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, sat in a wheelchair, his face tilted upwards, straining. The crowd pressed close, a sea of legs and backs completely obscuring his view. Johnny stopped, a knot forming in his stomach. The boy's thin frame seemed swallowed by the bulky chair, his shoulders hunched in frustration. Johnny moved closer. The boy's father, a weary-looking man with kind eyes, knelt beside him, trying to shield him from the jostling crowd. He pointed towards the stage, murmuring something Johnny couldn't hear over the rising din. "Excuse me," Johnny said, his voice deeper than he intended. Both the father and son looked up, startled. The father's eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Cash?" he stammered, his voice filled with disbelief. Johnny nodded, his gaze returning to the boy. "What's his name?" "Billy," the father replied, smoothing down his son's hair. "Billy Peterson." Billy's cheeks flushed pink. He avoided Johnny's gaze, focusing instead on a scuff mark on the floor. "Hi," he mumbled. "Hi, Billy." Johnny said gently. Having a hard time seeing? Billy nodded, his lower lip trembling slightly. Everyone's so tall. The father sighed. He's your biggest fan, Mr. Cash. He's been looking forward to this for months. Since we got the tickets. He paused, a flicker of sadness in his eyes. He doesn't get out much. This was his dream. Johnny looked at the stage, then back at Billy, his face still averted. He saw the yearning in the boy's posture, the unwavering devotion radiating from him despite his disappointment. The knot in Johnny's stomach tightened. This wasn't right. Music was supposed to be for everyone. He crouched down, bringing himself level with Billy. Tell you what, Billy, he said, his voice low and reassuring. How about we find you a better seat? One where you can see everything. Billy's head shot up, his eyes wide with hope. Really? You mean it? Johnny smiled. I always mean what I say. Now, let's see what we can do about making your dream come true. The roar of the crowd seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the quiet determination that settled over Johnny. He knew what he had to do. The man in black stand. The dressing room door offered little warmth against Johnny's anxious touch. He knocked, a sharp, insistent tattoo. Bob? You in there? A groan, thick with fatigue, answered him. Bob, Ty Askew and eyes radiating weariness peered out. Johnny, for God's sake. They're screaming your name out there. What's the hold up? Johnny shouldered past him, the confined space shrinking further under the weight of anticipation. The room reeked of stale smoke and raw nerves, the familiar perfume of pre-show jitters. I'm not going on. Bob's hand stilled on his tie, his gaze locking onto Johnny. What madness is this? We're sold out. Biggest crowd ever. He gestured towards the muffled roar resonating through the walls. Johnny sank onto the dilapidated couch, its springs emitting a mournful squeal. He fished out a pack of Marlboros, the ritual familiar and comforting. He lit one, inhaling deeply. Smoke wreathed his face, blurring his iconic features. Not until he's moved. Color flooded Bob's face. Moved? Moved where? Who are we relocating, Johnny? And why now? 5 minutes until curtain. Billy Peterson. He's stuck in the back. Says he can't see a damn thing. Johnny's tone was a low rumble, implacable. Bob scrubbed a hand through his receding hairline. Billy Peterson? Back? What is this about? How in the world do you even know? Knowing's not the point. Johnny cut in, tapping ash into a chipped receptacle. He deserves a better view. Everyone deserves to see the show, especially him. The image of the kid's earnest face, the incandescent joy when he spoke of Ring of Fire, flashed in his mind. Johnny, you're being impossible. There's a seating chart, there are tickets, there's protocol. Bob sputtered, his voice climbing the scale of incredulity. We can't just pluck someone from the cheap seats and install him up front. It'll be chaos. And the sponsors. He trailed off, his jaw working. Johnny rose, his presence filling the small room. Tension hung heavy in the air. Then fix it, Bob. Get him a better seat. The goddamn best seat. Until then, the band stays put. His eyes, usually pools of warmth, had turned to chips of flint. The chanting outside surged, insistent as a rising tide. Bob's shoulders slumped in defeat. He recognized that look, that granite resolve. Arguing was futile. Once Johnny Cash dug in his heels, he was an immovable force. He exhaled, the sound a puff of resignation. Fine. I'll see what I can do. But I'm telling you, Johnny, this is a powder keg waiting to blow. Johnny watched him leave, the cigarette dwindling between his fingers. He knew the stakes were high. But some things transcended schedules, sponsors, even a packed house. Some things simply felt right. He drew on the cigarette, the smoke a bitter tang on his palate. He could only pray he hadn't just unleashed a hurricane. Panic backstage. Panic backstage was a living, breathing entity. Bob, Johnny's manager, felt its clammy fingers tightening around his throat. The roar from the auditorium was morphing from anticipatory excitement to something uglier, more demanding. He pounded on Johnny's dressing room door. "John! They're chanting your name out there! We have to get moving!" Silence. Bob tried the handle. Locked. "John, open the damn door!" Finally, a muffled voice from within. "Did you move him, Bob? Did you get Billy up front?" Bob ran a hand through his thinning hair, leaving it standing on end. "John, we've been over this. The fire marshal won't allow it. There's no space for a wheelchair that close to the stage. It's a safety hazard." He pictured the venue manager, Mr. Henderson, a man whose face was perpetually set in a grimace, pacing like a caged tiger. The man's career, and potentially Johnny's, rested on getting this show started. Safety hazard? What's more hazardous than denying a man his right to hear music? "I ain't going on until Billy's got a decent view." The voice was resolute, immovable as a granite mountain. Bob groaned. This wasn't just about appeasing Johnny's conscience. It was about navigating the minefield of venue regulations, union rules, and the increasingly hostile crowd. He could feel the sweat beading on his forehead, itching under his starched collar. He rattled the doorknob again, harder this time. "John, be reasonable. We can offer Billy a meet and greet. Signed merchandise. Whatever he wants. Just, please, come on." The dressing room remained stubbornly silent. Bob glanced at the stagehands hovering nervously in the wings. Their faces were etched with anxiety. The impatient stomping from the audience was now punctuated with boos. He imagined the headlines. "Johnny Cash holds concert hostage over wheelchair access." He turned to one of the stagehands, a young kid named Mikey, his face pale. "Find Henderson. Tell him we need to find a compromise. A platform, maybe? Something to elevate Billy without blocking the emergency exits." Mikey scurried off, disappearing into the chaos. Bob leaned against the wall, feeling the rough texture of the brick against his back. He closed his eyes, picturing Billy, imagining the disappointment in his eyes. He understood Johnny's heart, his unwavering commitment to fairness. But right now, fairness felt like an impossible ideal, crushed under the weight of logistical nightmares and the rising tide of public impatience. The bass drum thumped from beyond the curtain, a primal heartbeat of the restless crowd. Bob had minutes, maybe seconds, to avert a disaster. June's intervention. June heard the shouting even before she reached Johnny's dressing room. Bob Wooten's voice, sharp and frustrated, sliced through the muffled sounds of the backstage bustle. She pressed her ear against the door, wincing at the venom dripping from each word. "Unreasonable! You can't hold up the whole show for one person, John! It's insane!" Johnny's reply was a low growl, indecipherable but clearly unwavering. June straightened, smoothed down her floral dress, and knocked firmly. "Gentlemen," she announced, pushing the door open before either could respond. Bob, red-faced and sputtering, turned towards her. Johnny remained slumped in a chair, face buried in his hands. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and simmering anger. June ignored Johnny and walked directly to Bob, her smile radiating genuine warmth. "Bob, darlin'," she said, laying a hand on his arm. "You look like you could use a sweet tea and a little bit of June's magic." She steered him out of the dressing room, leaving Johnny in his self-imposed exile. "Now tell me everything," she said, leading Bob toward the catering table. After listening patiently to Bob's tirade, June patted his hand. "All right, Bob. I understand. It's a logistical nightmare, but Johnny's got a point, doesn't he? Everyone deserves a good seat, especially someone who needs it." Bob sighed. "Easier said than done, June." "Well," she said, her eyes twinkling, "let's make it easy then. Now, who's in charge of seating around here?" Bob pointed towards a harassed-looking man in a headset near the stage entrance. "That's Jerry, the venue manager. Good luck with him. He's been pulling his hair out all day." June grinned. "Luck has nothing to do with it, darlin'." She approached Jerry with a confident stride, her voice carrying above the din. "Jerry, honey! June Carter Cash. Wonderful to see you working so hard. She offered her hand, her grip surprisingly firm. Jerry, clearly flustered, stammered a greeting. Mrs. Cash. Pleasure. Big fan. Now, Jerry, June continued, her voice softening. I hear we have a bit of a situation with a fan who needs a little extra help seeing the show. Johnny's got his heart set on making sure everyone has a good time. You know how he is. Jerry's shoulders slumped. He's holding up the show, Mrs. Cash. I can't just magically conjure up a front row seat. June leaned closer, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. Conjure? No, honey. We're gonna rearrange. You got some strong lads back there, don't you? And maybe a spare chair or two? We just need to reprioritize. Think of the good press, Jerry. Johnny Cash ensures everyone has a front row seat. That's a headline worth working for, wouldn't you say? She gave him a wink. Jerry looked from June's persuasive smile to the restless crowd beyond the stage. He chewed his lip, then nodded slowly. All right, Mrs. Cash. All right. I'll see what I can do. He grabbed his headset, barking orders into it. June patted his arm again. That's my boy, Jerry. You just made a whole lot of folks happy tonight. Now you deserve a sweet tea too. She turned back to Bob, a triumphant glint in her eyes. See, Bob? Sometimes all it takes is a little bit of sugar and a whole lot of persuasion. Hammer's plan. June found Hammer backstage, wrestling with a stubborn spotlight. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his thick arms strained as he tightened a bolt. Hank, she said, her voice gentle but firm enough to cut through the din. He grunted, barely glancing her way. Busy, Ms. Carter. Show's about to start. I know, honey. But we got ourselves a situation. She explained about Billy, the boy in the wheelchair, and Johnny's refusal to go on. Hammer stopped wrenching the bolt. He wiped his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of grease across his forehead. His expression softened, a flicker of something other than gruff pragmatism in his eyes. Wheelchair, huh? June nodded, her own worry etched into her features. He's stuck way back, can't see a thing. Johnny's right, it ain't fair. Hammer was silent for a long moment, staring at the floor. June thought he was going to dismiss the whole thing as some starry-eyed nonsense. But then he looked up, his eyes focused on something distant. Had a sister, he said, his voice low and rough. Polio. Used a chair her whole life. Remember hauling her around, trying to get her a good view. Wasn't always easy. The air hung heavy with unspoken memories. June didn't push him, just waited. All right, Hammer finally said, the gruffness returning to his voice, though June could still see the vulnerability lurking beneath. All right. Let's see what we can do. He ran a hand through his thinning hair, leaving it standing on end. Can't just lift him, too risky. And the aisles are too narrow with all the gear. He surveyed the stage, his eyes scanning the layout with a practiced eye. There's the service passage, June offered, pointing towards a narrow doorway stage left. It runs behind the amps. Hammer shook his head. Too bumpy. Chair'd never make it. He chewed on his lip, then his eyes lit up. Wait a minute. There's that old cable ramp we use for the camera dollies. We could lay it down from the back, along the service passage floor, then angle it through the band equipment and straight to the front. June's face brightened. That just might work. But is it wide enough? Wide enough and strong enough, Hammer confirmed. It's steel reinforced. We'd need a couple of us to guide him, but it's the safest bet I can see. He clapped his hands together, the sound echoing in the backstage area. All right, Ms. Carter, let's get this show on the road, for Billy and for your Johnny. A path to the stage. Hammer, we gotta get that boy up front, June declared, her eyes shining with purpose. The backstage area was a maze of tangled cables, instrument cases, and roadies hustling with purpose. She grabbed Hank Johnson's arm, her touch surprisingly firm. You think you can clear a path through this mess? Hank, initially skeptical, glanced at the dense crowd visible through the gap in the stage curtains. June, that's a whole lot of folks already packed in tighter than sardines. He's way in the back, you said? Clear at the back. Said he can't see nothin'. June's drawl tightened with determination. Now you gonna help, or am I gonna have to wrangle this whole crowd myself? Hank sighed, a reluctant smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. All right. Lead the way, darlin'. But if I get trampled, I'm haunting you. They navigated the backstage chaos with surprising ease, June's warm smile and Hank's sheer size proving a potent combination. Excuse us, just trying to get through, June would say, her voice carrying easily over the din. Got a young fella needs to see the show. People, initially annoyed at the interruption, would often soften upon seeing June's genuine concern. Reaching the aisle, the real challenge began. The crowd was a sea of faces, bodies pressed together, all focused on the stage. Hank took the lead, his broad shoulders parting the throng like a ship cutting through water. Makin' way here, folks. Important business. Gotta let this lady through. A few grumbles rippled through the crowd. Hey, watch it, buddy! Someone shouted. We've been standing here for hours! June stepped forward, her charm radiating outward. I know, honey, and I appreciate your patience. We just need a little space for a few minutes. A young man back there can't see, and we're gonna help him out. She pointed towards the back of the auditorium, her voice laced with sincerity. It won't take long, I promise. And Johnny's gonna put on a show you won't forget. The grumbles softened, replaced by murmurs of understanding. A few people even shifted slightly, creating a narrow passage. But progress was slow, each step a negotiation, each inch hard won. Hank's patience, usually thin, seemed surprisingly resilient. He remembered nights he'd stood at the back of crowds, just hoping for a glimpse of the stage, a taste of the music. A particularly large man, arms crossed and scowling, blocked their path. Ain't movin'. Paid good money for this spot. June stepped right up to him, her eyes meeting his. And I respect that, sir. But sometimes doing the right thing is worth more than any amount of money. Just a little bit of kindness, that's all we're askin. She paused, then added, with a touch of steel in her voice. And Johnny wouldn't want anyone blocked from seeing him play. The man hesitated, then, with a grunt, shifted aside. All right. But make it quick. June smiled, a genuine, grateful smile. Thank you, sir. You're a good man. She squeezed past, followed closely by Hank, pushing onward, a path to the stage slowly, painstakingly, opening before them. The man in black sings. The roadies, with their perpetually stained fingers, got it done. Billy, chair and all, was maneuvered onto a platform stage left. Not exactly prime real estate, more of a VIP annex, but the view was clear. The rising din of the crowd receded, transforming into a muted oceanic drone, utterly dwarfed by the seismic activity in his chest. He gripped the chair's chill metal, knuckles bone white. His gaze darted across the stage, a frantic search. Where was he? Each second became an age. Then, the lights plunged, cloaking the arena in near-total darkness, triggering a collective, guttural roar. The opening bars of Folsom Prison Blues reverberated, distorted, amplifying the anticipation. Still no Johnny. A solitary spotlight then knifed through the gloom, illuminating a figure emerging from the wings. Starkly tall, clad head to toe in black. Johnny Cash. A communal exhalation, a tangible wave of adoration, swept the mass of people. But Cash remained still. He stood in silhouette, his gaze sweeping across the multitude of faces. Then, recognition. A slow, almost secret, smile touched his lips. A slight nod, a private acknowledgement just for him. Billy felt his throat constrict. He yearned to shout, to wave, to somehow express the overwhelming gratitude threatening to suffocate him. All he could manage was a trembling smile. Finally, Cash stepped to the mic, the guitar across his chest gleaming under the spotlight. The crowd erupted again, a sonic blast threatening to unseat Billy. All right. Cash's voice, a low, gravelly rumble, cut through the noise, instantly silencing the arena. Before we begin, There's someone I want to dedicate this first song to. The spotlight shifted subtly, engulfing Billy in its warm embrace. He recoiled slightly, suddenly hyper-aware of every eye in the place burning into him. There's a young man here tonight, Cash continued, his tone softening, who's waited a long time for this. Billy, this one's for you. The crowd exploded. Cheers, whistles, and applause crashed over him like a breaker. He bowed his head, tears pricking his eyes. Someone hollered, "Give 'em hell, Johnny," and a ripple of laughter spread. Cash struck the opening chords of I Walk the Line. The music cascaded over Billy, a soothing, cleansing current. He closed his eyes, allowing the sound to resonate through him, each note a confirmation, a validation of his presence. He was here. He was seeing Johnny Cash. And in that moment, nothing else existed. The man in black was singing, especially for him. A song for everyone. The roar hit Johnny like a physical force. He stepped from the wings, squinting against the spotlight's glare, and scanned the crowd. Thousands of faces blurred together, but his eyes searched specifically, intently for one. He saw him. Way in the back, almost swallowed by the throng, a kid in a wheelchair. Billy. Johnny nodded, a small, private acknowledgement, and felt a surge of energy course through him. Tonight wasn't just another show. He strummed the opening chords of Folsom Prison Blues, and the crowd erupted again. But above the cacophony, Johnny heard it, a clear, unwavering voice singing along, every word perfect, ringing with pure joy. Billy. The kid was belting it out, oblivious to everything but the music. Johnny grinned. He poured everything he had into the performance, each note a testament to the power of music, its ability to transcend barriers and touch every soul. The set flew by in a blur of sweat and sound. Ring of Fire ignited the crowd. I Walk the Line drew tears, and Jackson had couples swaying in the aisles. With each song, Johnny glanced back, searching for Billy, drawing strength from the kid's unwavering enthusiasm. Finally, the last chord of Big River faded, and the house lights came up. The crowd thundered its approval, but Johnny waved them silent. I need to do something, he said into the microphone, his voice raspy with emotion. There's a young man here tonight, name of Billy Peterson. Billy, are you still with us? A ripple went through the audience. A few people turned, peering into the back. A hesitant cheer went up, followed by a sustained roar. Billy, Johnny continued, I want to meet you backstage. The backstage area was a chaotic mess of roadies, instruments, and half-eaten sandwiches. Johnny leaned against a stack of amplifiers, his brow furrowed with impatience. Then he saw him. Billy, wheeled in by a weary-looking attendant, his face flushed with excitement. Mr. Cash. Billy stammered, his eyes wide. I can't believe it. Johnny smiled, a genuine, warm smile. Billy, it's good to meet you. I heard you singing out there. You know my songs better than I do. Billy blushed crimson. I listen to them all the time. They mean a lot to me. Johnny straightened, reaching for a guitar leaning against the wall. It was a well-worn Martin, its finish scratched and faded. He held it out to Billy. This is for you, he said. I want you to have it. Billy stared at the guitar, his mouth agape. But I can't. This is yours. It's yours now, Johnny insisted, gently placing the guitar in Billy's lap. Learn to play it. Write your own songs. And remember, music is for everyone. He pulled out a black marker and scribbled across the guitar's body. Keep on singing, Billy. Johnny Cash. Billy looked up, tears welling in his eyes. Thank you, Mr. Cash, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Thank you? He ran his fingers over the signature, a small, shaky smile spreading across his face. In that moment, surrounded by the backstage clamor, a quiet connection formed, a melody played only for them.